I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Ingrid Thompson. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful night?
Well, I'm going particularly well because we're in Sydney and it's tomorrow, so it's good morning to you.
I love it. Well, it's fascinating how we can connect, right, over time zones.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Some people act like this is something like, you're speaking to someone, but this is so fascinating. I'm hearing your voice in real time over so many miles. It still gets me.
Yeah, because I can actually remember when you used to have phone calls where you said over at the end of the because the delay and the ocean currents were so great that and yet you could just be sitting right here beside me.
Wow, it's definitely fascinating. Yeah. Well, that being said, my friend, please do tell me, which of your talents is responsible for us meeting?
It's podcasting. We connected on LinkedIn because we're both podcasters.
Yeah, you're part of the family. I'm part of the family as well. Now tell us about your podcast. Like, I got to listen to it. Tell us the name of your podcast and where we can get more information on it.
So my podcast is called So You Want to Start a Business, and it's a series of interviews with people who've started businesses so that we can learn from their startup stories. Yeah. And it's on iTunes and Stitcher, and it's on my website as well.
Wonderful. What's your website?
healthynumbers.com.au.
Love it. Now, the podcast I just listened to, just in case folks go to that when they listen, you were expressing, you were sharing the value of social media, and you were basically, it's like you were doing a white paper on a company, right?
Yes.
And you were speaking about that, which was really fascinating. Like, wow. Did I say wow? It's miraculous, if you would, what's going on with the ads that are happening on social media and how companies are growing, isn't it?
It is, and that company has really focused and grown exponentially in a very short space of time using social media. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah. I mean, I can pronounce their names because it looks German, is it? Markovic or...
They're both European, yes,
okay.
But they live on the Gold Coast in Queensland, and they started there only in their early 20s, and they started with not very much money, and they are $40 million in sales this year. So it's just phenomenal. It's pretty amazing. And they're absolutely gorgeous young men. I met them just last Saturday, and I'm looking forward to Alex or Nick coming on my podcast. But I just wanted to put that story on there because it's such an inspiring story.
It is, and I'm glad that you did share it because sometimes people speak to other people on podcasts, and that definitely speaks to what they've accomplished. But I think what you did, it's like research. It's like an audio research paper that you've gotten live to show the viability of the content, right? This is great. Like, I loved it. Who did you learn that skill from? The skill of simplifying something that may seem really, really challenging to understand.
You know, I think I'm genetically predisposed to that because I care a lot about how people learn. I've always been a teacher. I was a big sister, like as in I have a little sister. I was a big sister in the Big Sister Big program in YWCA. I was a girl guide leader. So my childhood was spent being a teacher. And I've just spent my whole life looking at how can I help people understand things that are difficult, particularly things like maths and numbers and concepts that, it's just, I think I've learned it from watching how others do it.
Now, being the person who has to learn things for others to be able to learn from you is sometimes challenging. Why will you continue to repeat this skill?
Because that's what keeps us growing. I'm actually right now learning to meditate, and it's one of the most difficult things that I have ever done. It's easy to meditate when you're sitting in a retreat somewhere, and it's everything around you supports you to do that. But I am learning to meditate in my everyday life. And, I have the sounds of the suburbs around me. I don't know, you can maybe even hear an aircraft going over my house right now. The dogs bark, there's sounds in the house, and I'm learning to keep my mind still for those 20 minutes every day. So I will always continue to learn how to learn, because it's what keeps me vibrant and keeps me healthy.
I love it. One friend told me it's very easy to meditate in silence. The true meditator, the true skilled meditator can meditate in noise and remain silent. So I definitely look forward to see where that leads and what you accomplish there. Do tell me one other thing you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
So Pilates. I go to Pilates at least 3 times a week. It's a form of exercise, and I love it.
Wow. So how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel stronger. It makes me feel taller. It makes me feel like my body is working properly. It just truly is. I've always been a yoga girl, so I do yoga as well, and we surf and I walk. But there's something about Pilates that actually moves the body in a way that helps all those little aches and pains to just elongate and go away.
Interesting. I'll definitely need to check out Pilates after these conversations, because I'm bent in a sitting position so long.
It's particularly good for that, it really does counter. It really does. There's also there's a lot of movement modalities that you can use that counter this sitting that we do so often now. So and I just think everybody needs to find something that helps them with their posture because of what we do to our bodies these days.
Yeah, I love that. Well, amazing audience, we are live with Ingrid Thompson. Ingrid is a podcaster, right? And the name of her podcast is So You Want to Start a Business Now, isn't it? All right.
It is.
So you could definitely check her out there. Ingrid, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Ingrid, what is the earliest childhood memory?
Well, it's a really funny one, actually. I mentioned earlier about the telephones, but I can remember sitting in our house. We had a little table and chairs. You know how children have a small table and chairs, and we had this pile of rosellas. Now, rosella is it's a fruit, and it has a seed in the middle, and it has an encasing on the outside, and you take the encasing off and you get the little fruit, and then you cook the fruit, and it makes the most beautiful jam called rosella jam. And my sister and I were sitting pulling these pods apart, and they were itchy and they were scratchy and there were little bugs in them. And I remember turning to my mum and saying, "Why do I have to do this?" And she said, "Because it's going to create the most fantastic jam that we will enjoy with scones." And so I think it was just such a strong memory, the itchiness on my hands, but the prospect of this jam afterwards, it was a magic memory.
Why do you think it's so clear?
I think because it was so itchy, those little bugs. But it was this, I think it's a really strong lesson, and it's part of who I am today, is that sometimes you just have to do stuff to get the good stuff, and that's, I think it was brave of my mum to make us do that. It was some sort of child labour, I think, but it was such a good lesson that, you need to do some difficult things to get the good things. And the jam was beautiful, and she made great scones, and So I think that's why. I think it's why it's so clear.
Well, that was great. Can I offer or add an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Please do.
I love the imagery of while the fruit is there and while the laborer is there. We're calling you a laborer now, right? The child laborer. That
I was.
The imagery of your mother, who is a person who learned the lesson and then had the information that was required to complete the task. And now it's fascinating to see that you are that person who is learning the information and then sharing the information so that others are able to complete the tasks.
Isn't that a lovely insight? I've never thought of that.
Well, You're welcome.
So much.
You're welcome. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Oh, Elton John, Rocket Man. I was an Elton John fan, and Rocket Man came out that year.
Yeah. Definitely fascinating. All right, my friend. Well, we have arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. Ingrid, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Not one specific. I think I try to pass on my skills to all my clients and to my audience. And it's interesting. I never know where my wisdom is going to go. And I think that's why I love the podcasting, because you just don't know where it goes.
Yeah, I totally agree. Are you married?
Yes.
And you said, okay, so do you have children? I'm asking the questions. Do you have children?
No, I don't have children.
Okay, do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Absolutely.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
Maybe 3 hours.
Okay, and what about screen time? The phone and or the computer, is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Less than 8.
Ingrid, after having 1,001 conversations in 3 months, I needed to do Pilates. I came up with a workbook that's called Yours, and it stands for your own unique real self. And connected to that is your own unique real stance and your own unique real statement. If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Ingrid Thompson, your mission, if you would, what would that be?
I think it's that idea of just doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It's not for anyone else. It's when no one's watching, like you sneeze, you still say, excuse me. There's that doing what has to be done, not because someone else is around, but because it's the right thing to do.
Love it. Doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Ingrid Thompson, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Whatever your dreams are, just do a step forward towards them. Take an action, because ideas are just that. They're just ideas. And without action, they just stay ideas. Do something to take your ideas into reality.
Ingrid Thompson, this was a great pleasure. Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks to the listeners.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.